Hello everyone, it's the Sky Priestess and welcome to your latest installation of Tier 23. I actually had a lot more material prepared and I'm redoing this introduction because I realize energetically follow the original plan. This installation is between December the 26th till January the 2nd. There are some profound energetic opportunities at play here. Take the time to go through the material. You will not want to miss out on a single day. And let's get into it. 26th of December, we saw a couple of things. I'll just talk about them briefly because, most of you have been part of this program long enough to know what I'm going to say about certain things, but I'll just summarize. Mars at 9 degrees of Sagittarius squares Thereus at 9 degrees of Virgo. The Sun conjunct Pholus at 5 degrees of Capricorn. Thereus and Pholus are strongly linked to the outbreak of coronavirus, as per what I'm concerned. And it is absolutely unsurprising to see I think more than 2,000 flights all over the world have been cancelled because of the outbreak of the combination of the Delta and Omicron known as the Del-Micron variant. I would say as a general point, and that's why I'm starting off with this, the pandemic is not over. We just need to keep doing what we have been doing to weather the storm and to make sure that we do not get infected with a new combo, but not quite new variant. This is also a time where a lot of health issues for people can be coming up, even if they're not directly related to coronavirus. It's also a time to be looking at generational responses to fear, to domination, to control, and also generally speaking, a time to look at who or what or how is playing the role of Ceres in your environment. What is actually hooking you into patterns of predation and parasitism? It's very easy to point the finger. It's very hard to look at where you may be doing it to yourself or to other people. Always bear in mind that such things can go both ways, and it is very, very easy for the ego to want to see itself as a victim. Now, moving along, we also see another type of vulnerability come up with Nessus at 12 degrees of Pisces, conjunct Okyrhoe, the prophetess, at 12 degrees of Pisces as well. So Okyrhoe was cursed by the patriarchal gods to be transformed into a mare because she gave the prophecies to humanity before those patriarchal gods wanted her to. So it's very much the loss of her humanity and the loss of her ability to speak and the loss of her ability to use her gifts. So as Okyrhoe conjuncts Nessus in Pisces, it's certainly a reactivation or perhaps a rekindling of those old memories in situations where you may have had your psychic gift shut down, you may have lost your ability to use your voice, or conversely, you may be playing the role of Nessus, the abuser, which is where you actually end up doing that to another person, knowingly or unknowingly. It's hard to know what the story is, especially when it comes through past lifetimes, because again, the ego does not like being invalidated. But whatever these deeper emotions are coming up right now, whether it's in terms of feeling like you can't use your gifts or feeling like you can't express yourself, understand that those roots may not at all be in this here and now. If for those of you who are very psychically sensitive, also a good time to be practicing greater psychic protection, greater psychic discernment, and to continue the process of sitting with it, feeling through it, and seeing what happens. I would also recommend doing some protective practices before you go to sleep at night, as that is when the energy of Pisces is also very active, when one is in the dream state. The realms of dreaming exist whether or not you're awake or asleep, but people tend to experience it more intensely when they sleep. Also, the 26th of December, we see Mercury between 19 and 20 degrees of Capricorn. Firstly, Trine Psyche at 19 degrees of Virgo, and secondly, it sextiles Neptune at 20 degrees of Pisces, making the yacht point of 20 degrees of Virgo. With Mercury aspecting Psyche and Neptune, which are in opposition to each other, the question then becomes, what is the animating force or principle by which we continue our journey at this time? Are we looking at some faraway ideal, some faraway illusion, or are we motivated by some kind of spiritual experience that gives us a glimpse of the transcendent? Are we basically falling for illusion or transcendence or some bizarre combination of both? And Mercury at this time gives you the intellectual tools to help you discern as to how these larger concerns play out in the material here and now. Look at what you say, look at who is speaking to you, look at your relationship with siblings, look at your experience with your immediate environment. How are these shaping your basic will to live, your basic reason to continue, your motivating force or animating principle at this time? What kind of illusions may be taking you away from that basic self-preservation instinct? Are these valid? Are these relevant? Are these legitimate or not? These are things to also be asking. The Mercury-Neptune sextile is also a very profound energy that gives us the opportunity to more fully manifest the spiritual ideals and spiritual experiences that we wish to see here on this earth. If you have anything near 20 degrees of Leo at the yacht point, it will be a profound experience and an energy that gives you the opportunity to use your love and creativity and joy to act as a bridge or a conduit towards bringing both the spiritual and the material into harmonious union. There's going to be a lot of sextiles between Capricorn and Pisces in this period of review. A lot of energy is situated and focused there, so do pay attention to it. Know that if you do have anything in this near this 20 Leo point, it's going to actually give you more impetus and more impulse to use that creativity to manifest something that is in alignment. But remember that Leo can also get carried away with things, so it's equally important to not just wear your heart on your sleeve and think that your ego mind and ego reactivity is who you actually are. That is where you end up manifesting illusion and delusion rather than transcendent experience or existence, however you want to call it. So these are things to also bear in mind. Monday, the 27th of December, we see Jupiter squared the mean nodes. So Jupiter is at 29 degrees of Aquarius. The mean nodes are 29 degrees, Taurus and Scorpio. Truthfully speaking, there are two different calculations of the node. One is the mean node, which shifted on December the 23rd, and the other is the true node. I do not personally believe that the true node is truer. I feel that, the mean doesn't mean that something is mean either. Mean just means average. But the thing is, the nodes are not even physical bodies in the sky. So what I tend to do is I tend to look at it as a kind of window of time. So if I were to summarize it very quickly, I would say between December 23rd to January 18, we are indeed in a very liminal time as the nodes in both of their calculations shift out of Gemini Sagittarius into Taurus Scorpio. With respect to the mean node, we see that the nodes are already squaring Jupiter at this time at an exact degree. This really makes us think about what is our worth and value, how do we acquire that in the world, with whom do we acquire that or manifest that in the world, what are the larger teams and networks that can help us do this. Personally, I tend to resonate with the mean node, not because I feel that it reflects my personal experience more, but other people may like the true node. That's perfectly fine. For those of you who work with the true node calculation, the square, or rather the T-square, will be happening between the true node at 1 degrees Gemini and south node at 1 degree Sag, aspecting Jupiter at 1 degrees of Pisces on January the 3rd. So, you're going to still be seeing some maneuverability here. Perhaps you may find a new way of thinking about how you want to get all of these things done. Perhaps you may be thinking about how to best express yourself, how to best communicate, where to go, how to do things, and which kind of spiritual energies you can connect with to help you best manifest these in a way that align with your heart and spirit as a whole. So some of those questions will be coming up around January 3rd. The true nodes shift into the new signs on January 18th. So like I said, it's basically I love this word, liminal time. It's a time where things are shifting back and forth, and we are seeing Jupiter squaring the nodes at this very pivotal time of shifting. So this is really when our ability to look at who has our back, what is expanding our vision and dreams, and are these energies actually aligned to the direction that we need to go towards. Is this a direction that actually helps us bring a more stable understanding of abundance, health, and value and happiness? Or is it something that is really feeding back into old control dynamics and old energies of ownership, of domination, of drama, and so on and so forth? Sometimes the greatest alchemy that we can actually seek is in walking away from a life of excessive intensity and drama and focusing instead on the little things in the here and now, as counterintuitive as that may feel for some of you. But I would say that is the bigger choice that we are being asked to take at this time. Take it slow, take it easy, try not to, jump into any grandiose ideas, and allow yourself to be supported by your teams, whether that's a human team, energetic team. Just make sure they're all level and on board and don't have any hidden agendas. So, like I said, very, very shifting time between December the 23rd to January the 18th. Moving along, December the 28th, we see Jupiter at 29 degrees of Aquarius, trine Haumea at 29 degrees of Libra. She is, of course, the mother of Pele. And it's important to also note that the moon at 29 degrees of Libra also conjuncts Haumea and trines Jupiter on the same day. If you have anything near 29 degrees of Gemini, that will then create a grand air trine. But the Jupiter Haumea trine to me is always a reminder to listen deeply to the earth and to understand that the earth has her own understanding of balance and justice, harmony and fairness. And if you don't know what to do, sit on the grass, listen. She might not speak to you in English or whatever your language is, but she will speak to your heart, and that in itself is a transforming experience. Also on the 28th of December, we see Mercury at 23 degrees of Capricorn squared Eris at 23 degrees of Aries. It is a very important time to be true to the soul, to write, to speak, to communicate, to think, and to reflect upon information in a way that actually resonates with the truth of the spirit. It is not about falling into confinement with other people's ideas and other people's values in ways that denigrate the self. Rather, it is about finding tools that allow you to help contribute to build a society, a structure, a job, whatever it is that you are doing, that can more authentically reflect and embrace and include different understandings of selfhood without negating yours and without negating others. The only real principle here is harm none, including yourself. So that is the 28th of December. Generally speaking, the fact that the Libra moon is also going to be aspecting Sedna, Ceres, and the mean node, well, just bear in mind that relationships and questions of contracts and negotiations can come up quite strongly at this time. The 29th of December sees Mars at 11 degrees of Sagittarius in conjunct Uranus at 11 degrees of Taurus. The yod points are 11 degrees of Cancer or 11 degrees of Libra. What this means in English is that it's very unpredictable. The inconjunct energy between Mars and Uranus can show us one way or another how our belief systems, our teachers, the men in our life, those who hold the masculine energy in our lives, whether or not they can actually point us towards a breakthrough in our understanding of worth and value, joy, abundance, and community, or are they going to do something that creates a breakdown, which may lead to a breakthrough, but it takes more work to get to that space. This can be a very productive, very creative and fertile energy if you, once again, you are willing to look at the larger question of balance, harmony and justice, and how whatever it is you're doing right now can create a more nurturing and inclusive home space for everyone involved, whether it's a physical home, whether that's a community, or whether you're thinking of home in terms of a larger space as the earth. This is also a time where you do want to be more mindful about how you move, where you move, watch your throat, watch your ankles, watch your hips, watch your general vitality. Not a day to be really, shooting off and just jumping into the fray. Take your time, be patient. Would be the lesson of these two. And on top of that, the sun also squares Chiron on the same day at sun at 8 degrees Capricorn, Chiron at 8 degrees Aries. So there is a higher chance of getting into some kind of medical or health issue if you are not careful. In a more positive way, the Sun Chiron square can also give you the energy and impulse to look at just how you can deal with issues of what you feel insecure or uncertain about, and how you can best either work with people or create a structure or find the resources that you actually need to address this in a more productive way. But that needs strategy, not shooting from the hip. Now, having said that, also on the same day, we see Mercury entering the shadow phase at 24 degrees of Capricorn, just as it conjuncts Venus on the same day. It's going to be very important to look at our relationships, our collaborators, the people who hold the feminine energy in our lives, and understand that what we are talking about with them at this time may be things that we end up needing to revisit anyway. So there's some scope for negotiation, there's some scope for reconciliation in relationships and in business connections, and also in a deeper sense, a need to speak to the feminine archetype as it manifests in the different ways in our life, and to look at how our relationship with the feminine in this way is actually contributing to whatever larger vision or legacy of the world that we have. So Mercury will go back at this point, especially as it goes through its retrograde, which we will talk about in a little bit. But effectively, look at your communication, look at what you say, look at who you say it to, and who is speaking to you at this time. Last but by no means least, we also see Jupiter entering Pisces on the same day. Now, it will finally finish its transit through Pisces on December the 20th, 2022, and it will be in Eris between May the 10th till October the 27th in 2022. But Jupiter entering Pisces will be a different energy. It is the kind of energy that is less cerebral and is much more about surrender and faith and spirit. But at the same time, it is the energy that lends itself to delusion, glamours, and believing what it is that you want to believe as opposed to seeing what it is that is actually there. We will talk more about this in due course. But Jupiter entering Pisces can be a time of great building and renewal of faith. It can be a time of great spiritual healing and cleansing if you allow it to be. But if you decide to use that energy to go muddy the karmic waters even more, then that's exactly what you're going to get. But hopefully, people see this as an opportunity to work towards clearing further karma, to work towards finding greater harmony, to develop in themselves a spiritual practice that allows them to connect with the creative force that they understand as spirit on a daily basis. So this is all happening on December the 29th. December the 30th, we see Mars at 11 degrees of Sagittarius, sextile Saturn at 11 degrees of Aquarius. This is a positive alignment. It again gives us the tools that we need to build. It is about building, whether it's an energetic reality, whether it's a virtual reality, whether it's your relationship with benefactors, community, collaborative ideas and technologies. It gives you that impetus to think about, reach out, communicate, and go to where it is you need to go to build what it is that you need to build. The yacht point again is 11 degrees of Cancer. Whatever you do, look at creating something that gives people an emotional space of nurture, of support, of grounding, and your path will be a lot more deeper, I would say. Mercury on the same day does a couple of things. Mercury also conjuncts Pluto. Mercury sextiles Bairavee, the false light. The yacht point is 25 degrees Leo, and it makes an aspect to Asbolus, the revealer of truths. So Mercury is being very busy at this time, and it is again all about listening to what comes our way and responding to it in a way that actually helps you build what it is you are building at this time. There's going to be a big focus on building all the way up till early March, as I have said before, because we're already seeing Venus retrograde in Capricorn. We're going to be seeing Mars in Capricorn. We're going to be seeing part of the Mercury retrograde in Capricorn, and of course we are already seeing the Sun in Capricorn with the upcoming new moon. So there is a lot of energy of building at this time, and I cannot downplay or understate the importance of your ability to think, communicate, and express right now. And as always, there is the danger of getting lured in by the glamours and by the twinkling, sparkly lights. Whatever it is you are building, make sure that you are building from a space that aligns with your heart and spirit, as opposed to what your ego either desires or fears or both. Also on the same day, we've already seen Mars sextile Saturn, Mercury aspecting Asbolus, Bairavee, and Pluto. We do see a couple of other alignments that we do need to talk about. We've got Black Moon Lilith at 18 degrees of Gemini, Trine Eros at 18 degrees of Aquarius. And again, this can be an energy that stimulates, that inspires, that activates. It could be something that brings you to deeper intimacy, or it could just be an illusion that's a flash in a pan and keeps you on some wild goose chase. With Black Moon Lilith at 18 degrees of Gemini, it's very important to look at what it is we're being drawn to. Are these things that can actually heal our vulnerability surrounding being seen, being heard, or are these things that are basically stuff that claims they can help out with it? So whether it's a friend or a benefactor or even someone who presents themselves as a soulmate, whatever energy is coming your way at this time, you really need to have your discernment turned up high. We also see on the same day the Sun at 8 degrees of Capricorn, Trine Ceres, the Hunter Stalker at 8 degrees of Virgo. So the risk of doing things that does create energetic parasitism and predation dynamics is quite high. Of course, you can use the same energy to try and find a way to heal and to address those same dynamics, but without discernment, it can fall into you saying yes to something that's just going to deplete you. And on the same day, we see Mars at 12 degrees of Sagittarius, squared Nessus and Okyrhoe at 12 degrees of Pisces. We're going to be seeing the same energy the day after. So there is a lot surrounding that sense of vulnerability, of having lost the voice, of having been involved in some kind of power dynamic that led to such a disconnection, and how that is being addressed in the here and now by the people in your life and what you are learning. So even if it's a teacher, even if it's a path, even if it's something that puts itself as a lesson with a capital L, you really have to see whether it's something that can help you heal the trauma and the karma, or is it something that will basically just recycle it. We also see on the same day, last but not least, Vesta at 23 degrees of Sagittarius, Trine Eris at 23 degrees of Eris. Are you going to sacrifice yourself to a path that tells you to sacrifice yourself? Are you going to devote and dedicate yourself to a path that allows you to devote and dedicate your energy to yourself in a balanced way? Or are you basically just going to run away from all of it and kind of go, no, I can't deal with this. I'm just going to be by myself and do my own thing now? Which doesn't always work so well, because Eris is quite a violent energy when it is egoic, when it is triggered, and when it doesn't know what it's doing, or when it feels like it's entitled to something. Whatever you do, given all of these opportunities in the sky, and I know it's a mixed bag, choose a path that really allows you to honor who you are and to acknowledge those parts of you that have not been expressed, but do not do so at the cost of another person. This is what I see people do. They're all about, I need my healing, I need to express who I am, and they turned into narcissistic, self-indulgent fucks. I'm sorry, but it has to be said that way. I have seen so many people who, in the name of self-love and in the name of self-care, just create a bubble around themselves and imagine that what they are doing does not influence the person around them because, oh, they focus on their self-care. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you shouldn't choose a path where you value yourself and you heal yourself and you respect yourself. But understand that you do not exist in a bubble. When you say, I am taking this space for myself, make sure that it is your space to take and you're not, stepping into someone else's energy. When you say, I need these things for me to be better, ask yourself, am I asking someone else to do, carry the burden of this labor for me? Ask those questions. And when you ask those questions, you are more likely to find a path that actually leads you to a greater truth without you ending up in the name of self-love and self-care as somebody else's Nessus or Ceres or Pluto or whatnot. Be very, very aware of this. I think I need to do a video about it. But honestly, I've gotten quite fed up with people using that language and abusing other people. But anyway, moving along to the 31st of December, we see Venus now at 23 degrees of Capricorn, squared Eris. And, similar energies of what we've been dealing with. It is about finding relationships and collaborations that allow us to be true to ourselves without burning everybody down, without burning ourselves down, but by creating a space where we are acknowledged and we are able to acknowledge the other as well. There is no point in acknowledging yourself if you are the only person you wish to acknowledge. There is no point whatsoever, because you are not an island. We exist in a much larger universe. And, this is the thing. I mean, I am very, very aware that people who are focused upon self-care and self-healing and self-work are also very privileged. The people who are still very much carrying the backbone of the global economy would not even have the time to think about this. And so it's all very good to talk about self-love and self-nurture in that way, but if you don't think about the cost of your living in a material sense, in an energetic sense, in a practical sense, well, what are you talking about? I mean, I one of the reasons I don't get involved in environmental debates is I think about it and I go, well, America, if you really are that interested in looking at sustainability, maybe cut down on your coffee before, waving the flag in everybody else's face and, look at your own carbon emissions and all this kind of things. And of course, they're not going to look at that. And from a culture where people don't use toilet paper necessarily, it was like, why don't you look at that too? And of course, people are not going to say that because it's much, much easier to talk about self-care in a bubble that has been insulated in the name of creating an emotional safe space. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I just can't be one of those teachers which just creates that safe space, quote unquote, safe space, and lets people feel comfortable without holding them accountable. Because at the end of the day, that's going to be something you're going to burst anyway. So look at your process of self love, look at your process of self care and self nurturing, and ask yourself, does it actually nurture your relationship with others? If you don't like humanity, maybe animals, maybe plants, maybe the planet. Whatever it is that you see yourself in connection with, ask yourself how that process that you are doing is either taking from or enriching the people around you. And if you are taking from, then there is something that is dangerously misguided about your understanding of self care. I really need to do this as a video. But oh God. You know me, once in a while I'll drop a truth bomb and people will be like, they'll either love it or they'll be like, no, terrible denial. And then a couple of years later, people will start writing articles about it and be like, yes, yes, we understand. But anyway, yes, it's baby in the back. That's baby in the back. The 31st of December also sees Mars squared Okyrhoe, same energy as before. Look at what or who is triggering this wound surrounding having been silenced, and remember that you could have also been the silencer. I know a lot of people who, again, in the name of spirituality or religion, actually end up blocking off the voices of the feminine in particular, even though whatever image or idol they worship to will look female in practice. So be very, very careful of this. We also see, oh, and baby just passed by. We also see Mercury, sextile Ceto, the great serpent. Mercury is at 27 degrees of Capricorn, sextile Ceto at 27 degrees of Scorpio. The midpoint of the two is the galactic center. The yod point is 27 degrees of Gemini. It's going to be a time where, whilst the pressure is not going to be as direct as a galactic center activation, there are going to be little nudgings and pushings that are again trying to go to get you to a certain point, to push you to an old way of being and thinking. How sensitive you are to this depends on how deeply you have been in the past enmeshed in those old orders. But long story short, it is your ideas, your voice, your ability to perceive that allows you to cut through and to create a new path of truth that is worth following. Also on the 31st of December, we see the occultation of Mars by the moon, and Mars at 12 degrees of Sagittarius is of course near the great attractor. The occultation of Mars by the moon is a very important alignment, which is also going to help us draw out what are the hidden elements that are being concealed behind the rhetoric and the rubric of truth. What do we understand as true? Who do we understand is entitled to truth? What is the role of the masculine, whether it's a male body or a more masculine idea of logic or a more masculine idea of expression? How does this configure our relationship to truth? All of that is going to be coming up as well. The 1st of January, finally, we get to a couple of other things. Here we see Mercury at 28 degrees of Capricorn, trining Sedna, 28 degrees of Taurus, trining Ceres, 28 degrees of Taurus, trining the North Node, 29 degrees of Taurus. Mercury again is the great revealer here. Mercury again gives you the tools to put into practice what you need to look at your vulnerability and wounds, not in a way that is all just about you, but in a way that helps you see and contextualize where these wounds came up, why were they perpetuated, and how are they still being recreated either in you or by you, knowingly or unknowingly, at this time. So there is a lot of accountability that needs to come through. We also see on the same day the Sun at 10 degrees of Capricorn, trine Uranus at 10 degrees of Taurus, which is why all of these deep questions need to be asked now. Because this is a time where we can break through the hardened earth to get to the nourishing aspect of the earth within that has been covered over by our own unwillingness to see. When we think we know something, when we think it gives us support and succor, we do not want to change it. And this is why there are so many issues surrounding blind spots on the spiritual journey and path. This is when you strike it down. This is when you cut it down. And the way you cut it down is through Mercury, who must ask those questions, who must look at the details Look at the facts and figures, figure out the dynamics, look at the larger pattern, and keep asking yourself, what can I do to change my relationship to this dynamic? So, it's a very powerful alignment. We also see Eros at 19 degrees of Aquarius in conjunct Psyche and 19 degrees of Virgo. The yacht points are 19 degrees Cancer or Aries. So Eros and Psyche are that pairing where Psyche basically goes off into the underworld because Eros is a mama's boy. She gets humiliated by Eros's mother in the underworld. Finally comes out, not the brightest bulb in the world. Eros at this time is still, he's basically sitting on his butt till he realizes, oh, okay, I do want Psyche. And he makes a deal with Zeus to get her to get her alive and back into Olympus so that she can finally become his golden bride. If you think that's a relationship model that is worth having, run away now. But Eros and Psyche as larger archetypes make more sense. Eros can bring up that sense of intimacy, that sense of that, you could call it that spark of awakeness or aliveness that makes you want to connect and do things. Whether or not it's a real connection or not is where your discernment needs to come in. Literally, Eros decides to go and marry Psyche and sleeps with her as a dragon or some kind of serpent creature. It comes to her in that way, and only at night does he actually revert to his true form. And she actually finds out who he is, but once she investigates and dripping some hot oil or wax or something like that, that's when Eros wakes up and runs away, abandoning her. Yeah, there's something wonky about this story. But when you look at Eros as that initial activation, at that initial awakening, and Psyche as the larger animating principle, it can be a very fortuitous connection, kind of like a spark plug that keeps your engine going. So the question is, what is the larger principle that is alluring you at this time, and what are the practical things that you need to do in the here and now to make that principle something that you can sustainably reach out to? Sustainability is one of my favorite concepts, but it is something that absolutely needs to be applied in a more direct way, in a more grounded way, especially when we think about our spiritual practices. And this is yet again another opportunity to be looking at that. Whew. Finally, getting to the 2nd of January, we see Mercury once again squared Haumea. Listen to the Earth, she knows what she's doing. We also see Mercury entering Aquarius. Now, it is going to be having a retrograde partially in Aquarius and partially in Capricorn. The Mercury retrograde itself is between January the 14th to February the 4th. So it will finally exit Aquarius on March the 10th. So this is a fairly longish transit of a Mercury in Aquarius, a little bit in Capricorn and back again. But all of this is going to be an opportunity to really link out to people and energies that will help us manifest the plans that we have been thinking about and wanting to commit to long term. And that's not a bad thing as long as you realize that there is going to be a process of revisitation again and again and again till we are actually sure with what we are building. Like I said, the first week of March for me is really when the new year begins. This is all basically just building. Also on the 2nd of January, we see Mars conjunct the Great Attractor, an excellent time to choose whatever path that you want to walk on at this time. We've already done a lot of preparation with Mars, and asking all of those questions, you can then find the road that leads you to where you want to be. Some of you will be joining me, and it's quite likely some of you may be leaving me at that time, just because that's what the Great Attractor is about. It will pull you, it will push you, and that is what it does, irrespective of what I do or don't do. As I have Saturn on the Great Attractor, so people see me in a certain way. Sometimes they love Saturns and sometimes they run away. So, but hopefully more of you stay and in a more aligned and committed fashion. We also see on this January the 2nd, the new moon at 12 degrees of Capricorn, which again is all about this energy of setting the seeds, of building, which we have discussed. Now, what is interesting is that this new moon also makes aspects to Chiron at 8 degrees Aries, Tereus at 8 degrees Virgo, Uranus at 10 degrees Taurus, and it sextiles Nessus and Okyrhoe, and a body that I don't often talk about. It also sextiles, but this time in Scorpio, a body called Mbaba Monawaresa, who is a sky goddess from Africa. I quite like her energy. She's got a cool energy. But effectively, this new moon is going to be giving us that very profound opportunity to help us set the seeds of a new reality that does not recreate this horrible, oppressive, gaslighting energy that has led so many people to be shut down, to be shut off, to be disassociated, and to not feel as though they have a right to share their gifts. It is one thing to say that certain gifts are obsolete and need to be surrendered to spirit. It is another for an energy to claim that they have the authority to shut a human being down. That is the problem that has happened and that is still carried in the frequency of patriarchy. But effectively, this is when we have the opportunity to set new seeds to create an entirely different dynamic. The connection of this new moon between itself and Mbaba Monawaresa is a very different dynamic, and that particular energy gives us an opportunity to reach out to the sky in a more profound way than before. I don't know how else to describe it. Mbaba Monawaresa is also known as the rainbow goddess, and she is someone who lives in her house in the sky, and well, presumably in a rainbow color. But effectively, this is an energy that gives us, yet again, that ability to connect and bridge sky to earth. That's the best way that I can put it. But this is what is happening during the new moon on January the 2nd. Honestly, I had material that's ready to go up till January the 7th, but this just feels like a natural place to bring this particular installation to a close. So that is exactly what I'm going to do. And I'll check back with you in early January. I hope these lessons will continue to inspire you and help align you to the opportunities of the year ahead. Take care, very many blessings, lots of love to all of you, and ciao ciao for now. Bye bye.